Welcome to Our Weird World. I'm your host, John Henson, and welcome to year number 5. Really kind of tumbled into year number 5. I'm sorry about last week's episode. I feel like it wasn't great. It's going to be like that sometimes now, if there's a baby as my co-host. But there's no baby today. He's off at baby school learning how to be a better baby. So it's just me today. Sorry. And we're going to start year number 5. 3 stories of just weird people. Just dumb, weird people who did and believed a lot of dumb things. We're looking at stories of Richard Snell, Terry Thompson, and our first story of John Birges. So after flying for the German Luftwaffe during World War II and then spending 8 years in a Soviet gulag, Hungarian John Birges immigrated to the United States and settled in Nevada, where he built a successful landscaping business, which is actually pretty difficult to do because Nevada has no landscaping to do. It's just dirt and rock. But he did it. And unfortunately, though, because he was in Nevada, he had a bad gambling problem, which then led to huge amounts of debt that he seemingly could not escape from. But then one day, John realized something. The casino to which he was indebted couldn't collect on the debt if maybe somehow that casino maybe just stopped existing one day. So Burgess claimed that he had lost $750,000 gambling at Harvey's Resort Hotel in State Line, Nevada, near Lake Tahoe, and that the reason that he lost all of that money was somehow the casino's fault, not his fault. Not at all. John Birges did nothing wrong. The casino made him lose $750,000. I wish I could sniff that amount of money. But rather than ask for like debt forgiveness or maybe try to set up some sort of repayment plan with the casino, Burgess instead set to work on building a bomb capable of blowing up the entire resort. And I mean, look, if you've ever been to Las Vegas or, Tahoe or any of these other cities in Nevada, these casinos are huge. Like, it's not just, there are a couple of like small casinos that are like in a trailer, but like most of them are like these huge buildings with these huge, hotels attached to them, a lot of pools, like they're big resorts. And so on August 26th, 1980, Burgess and several associates disguised as photocopier deliverers and carried a 1,000-pound booby-trapped bomb full of dynamite into Harvey's. And basically, what had happened was, they took this giant photocopier, like you would maybe think of like in an office setting, and took out all the parts of it and just stashed this giant bomb inside of it. So then what he did, like him and his goons, they walk in with this photocopier, and then he immediately tells the hotel that he has just delivered a bomb instead of the copying machine, because in his mind, the hotel would know if they had ordered a new copier. So he's like, hey, this is a bomb. And unless you want it to go off, you need to give me $3 million, which is weird. I don't know why he wouldn't just demand, $750,000. But I guess, go big or go home, right? So a note that he had attached to the bomb said that even the bomb maker couldn't disarm it. But if given the money, the hotel would receive instructions on how to move the bomb and remotely detonate it. So the hotel quickly calls the FBI. FBI gets involved, and they kind of decided or came up with this idea that it would take at least 4 men to move this bomb out of the hotel, but they weren't entirely sure how sensitive it was to detonating. So they decided that the bomb had to be disarmed at the hotel and got to work evacuating everyone. They cut off the gas lines, and they just made sure that the entire resort area was clear. They made sure that the area around the resort was clear. And so while the bomb squad went to work in the hotel, another group of officers then went out to the place where they thought that Birges would be waiting for the money drop. However, because the directions that Birges gave for the drop spot were so vague, they actually ended up going to the wrong location. The next day, the bomb squad decided that they needed to separate the detonators from the dynamite, which, I mean, that sounds like standard process for disarming a bomb, right? Like, I think that's technically what cutting the blue wire does, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a bomb expert. So I don't know. It seems simple on paper. It seems like an obvious thing to do on paper, but maybe it isn't. I don't know. The problem, though, with this plan was that they needed C4 explosives to actually shock the bomb, despite a clear warning from Birges that anything like that would immediately cause the bomb to detonate. So, figuring that they had no other choice, though, the bomb squad attached C4 to Burgess's bomb and ran the charge remotely. And as Birges promised, when they did that, when they kind of, detonated that smaller C4, the entire bomb detonated and destroyed most of this hotel. No one was hurt. No one was injured. There was no one inside. No one died. And over the course of the next several months, police figured out that it was John. He was arrested a year later, mostly because one of his son's ex-girlfriends told her new boyfriend what she knew about the event, and he went and told police. Birges was sentenced to life in prison, where he died of liver cancer in 1996. So, if you're in debt to a casino, don't try to blow up the casino. I mean, technically, he did do that. Like, I don't think he ever had to pay his debt off because he was in prison. So I guess it kind of worked out. Next story here is of Richard Snell, who was a member of the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, which is a white supremacist group that was born out of a Baptist congregation in Pontiac, Missouri. He was also a huge fan of the Christian identity movement, which believes that only white people of Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, Nordic, and Aryan descent are the true descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and are therefore the true Israelites chosen by God. If you're curious, there is no scientific evidence to back this claim up, which is not surprising at all, considering these people generally don't believe in science to begin with. But it's this white supremacy idea, but they really try to justify it religiously, where it's like, yeah, no, Abraham was white and Isaac and Jacob were white. I mean, Isaac and Jacob are really white names. Why would any other race name their babies those names? It's clear that they were white, so we're the true Israelites. Now, do they then adhere to the true Jewish laws? No, of course not. But that doesn't matter, because the Jews corrupted all of that and co-opted it, and those are just their silly Jew rules. And the white people are the true chosen people of the Lord, and none of that's true, right? But that's what these dinglings believe. Snell, he's part of these groups. He spent most of his free time filming planes that were landing at the Mena Intermountain Municipal Airport in Mena, Arkansas, because not because he was like this dork who just enjoyed filming airplanes as a hobby, because there are those weird people like that, those plane spotters, like they go out and they just geek out over what kind of planes and trains they see. That's not what this dude was doing. Instead, he and other conspiracy theorists believe that the CIA was actually using this random airport in Arkansas to smuggle drugs into the country. This dude is completely off the rails. All right. He believes all of the dumb things. So in 1983, several members of the CSA, which is the Covenant, the Sword, and the Arm of the Lord, the white supremacist group, they were arrested after they tried and failed to detonate a natural gas pipeline near Fulton, Arkansas. Soon after this event, the CSA practically dissolved, thanks to basically everyone getting arrested and the government taking their massive stockpile of weapons, which they had stolen to begin with, which had included an anti-tank rocket, 94 long guns, C4, and several machine guns. How random citizens get their hands on those kinds of weapons is crazy. And just like, if you're curious, long guns is just like a broad category of guns. Like generally probably think of like sniper rifles, basically. There are probably some other kinds of guns in there, but yeah. Like, and these white supremacists had somehow like stolen all of these like super, like an anti-tank. They just had a rocket laying around that could destroy a tank. How do you get your hands on that sort of thing? It's crazy. Although they had planned on committing various terror attacks, including bombing the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, this specific group never pulled anything off. And if that building in Oklahoma City sounds familiar, that was the building that Timothy McVeigh ended up bombing in 1995, and that's about to come up again later in this story. So later in 1983, Richard Snell shot and killed William Stump, who was a pawn shop owner, because he was Jewish, which actually wasn't true. Stump was not Jewish at all, but Snell thought he was, so he killed him. The following year, in 1984, Snell killed Arkansas State Trooper Lewis P. Bryant because he was black. Bryant was actually black, so he got that one right. But still, like a 50% identification rate on your murders is not a great stat. Although Snell tried to get away, eyewitnesses called police as Snell crossed the border into Oklahoma. After a brief shootout with Oklahoma police, Snell was shot 6 times and then arrested and given the death penalty. Perfect. Absolutely well-deserved. So on April 19th, 1995, Snell, he's on death row. He's waiting for his execution, which was coming up in the next few hours, when Timothy McVeigh actually bombed the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. In the days leading up to that event, Snell had actually been making predictions that there would be a massive explosion somewhere, and that explosion would be blamed on Middle Eastern terrorists. And so Snell, he's on death row. He's just hanging out somewhere. He's watching TV. He's watching the news coverage of this happening, and he's laughing and nodding in approval, like, yeah, this is good. This is good. I like seeing buildings go boom. I like seeing people die because of the Jews, and white is right. You know, that's right. All right. That's my catchphrase, because I'm Dick Snell. Dick Snell. Whites. Anyway, I don't know where that's going. Anyway, I just blacked out for a second. For what it's worth, Timothy McVeigh actually had no idea who Richard Snell was. He has simply picked April 19th to bomb it because that was the anniversary of the Waco siege. And so, neither of these two events were actually connected in any way. Richard Snell, just a big fan of what happened there. Snell was later executed. Our final story here is of Terry Thompson. Dude had it all, right? He was smart. He was attractive. Everyone wanted to be around him. And then Vietnam happened. Terry got drafted, and he was sent straight into combat. Like, he saw the worst of the war because he was a gunner on a Huey helicopter where his job was to provide cover while the chopper swooped in and rescued wounded and dying soldiers. So basically, he's being flown into the middle of combat zones. You got the Viet Cong out in the woods shooting people, yelling whatever they're yelling, and he's trying to shoot at them while they're shooting at soldiers. He's seeing his fellow soldiers just all kinds of messed up, coming on the plane. Like, the entire experience changes him. And I get it. Like, I can't imagine the kind of trauma that people from, like, any war, much less Vietnam, had to experience. Like, I get it, how that would completely change someone. So after returning from Vietnam, Terry kind of just did whatever he could to kind of start his life over and move on, try to forget it. He bought himself a new Corvette. He married a woman named Marion Sharp, and he opened a bike shop in Zanesville, Ohio, where he became the local Harley-Davidson dealer. And for the next 40 years, everything seemed pretty great, right? Terry is killing it. All right. He has moved on. He has set up a successful life for himself. And then one day, someone vandalized his bike shop. He caught the guy, nearly beat this guy to death. And so he's kind of like, again, all of a sudden now, like, he doesn't really face any kind of charges for it, but it's, again, he's kind of reverted back now. Like, it's the trauma's back. Everything is just not great. So he sells the bike shop. And with the money that he made from that, he then spent his newfound free time just kind of doing whatever he wanted. Like, he's basically could be retired now, retire early. Things are going pretty great again. He starts racing drag boats. He's flying charter flights because he's had his pilot's license since he was 16 years old. So he can make some extra money that way. Although it was a little weird, which, like, a little off-putting because he's like this Vietnam veteran, but then he has like all these weird hobbies. People just kind of accepted Terry around Zanesville, Ohio, and, whatever shenanigans that he was doing. But the one thing that Terry loved the most out of everything that he had going on was exotic animals. All right. It started in 1977 when he bought his wife a tiger cub named Simba. And within a few years of that, he acquired a baby bear and a lion cub. Despite not having the required USDA licensing to let people come in contact with his exotic animals, Terry just kind of traveled the country and let people pet his animals, and even supplied a lion cub to Heidi Klum for a photo shoot in 2008. Also in that year, he appeared on Rachel Ray's television show as an animal handler. So backing up a little bit, in 2005, which is crazy, he goes on Rachel Ray 3 years after he is convicted of animal cruelty after 3 cows and a buffalo were found starved to death on a property that he owned. 3 years later, in 2008, the ATF raided his house and confiscated 133 guns. Why does anyone need that many? I have 2, and neither of them are real guns, and I feel like that's plenty. Like I have 2 airsoft pistols, and that feels like more than enough for me. And this dude's out here just 133 guns, like, ready to go. And like, just his entire world's collapsing at this point, though, right? Like, ATF's raiding his property. He's got these animal cruelty charges. He had also run into financial trouble and was stretched really thin. He had amassed this large collection of animals that were kept in cages that lined his driveway, which has got to be a pretty cool driveway, right? Like, you turn into Terry's house and there's just these cages, and there's just a bear and a lion and a tiger and, like, whatever, cheetahs and stuff, like, whatever, just, and you're just driving up to Terry's trailer or whatever. It's probably a trailer. But he's got all these exotic animals in there. Like, think Joe Exotic, but less outwardly, like, slightly less weird, somehow slightly less weird, not by a long shot, right? Like, Joe Exotic got the documentary, but Terry's a close second here. But and just fewer people have heard this story. The only way to keep all of these animals in his driveway cages fed was to go out and illegally collect roadkill and then feed it to him, which, sad, right? Like, to us, right? To us, it's kind of sad, but, like, to the animals, got to be pretty exciting, right? Like, to have just a fresh possum right there. Or, God, man, deer season had to feel like the lottery for these people. Terry just going out, scraping deer off the side of the road, bringing them back. Here you go, Mr. Bear. Here you go, Mr. Lion. And they're just going to town on these deer carcasses. Gotta be some of the best days of the year for those animals. We think it's sad because what? Oh, we don't have enough kibble and dry, crunchy food for them. Ugh, they don't care. They don't care about that. Give them the exposed entrails of a raccoon that just got massacred by an 18-wheeler. That's what they're into. Doesn't matter what we think about it. That's what they like, probably, I think. Anyway, after serving a year in prison in 2011 for those charges resulting from the ATF raid, Terry learned that his wife had cheated on him after 40 years of marriage. It was fine because like he had already grown to distrust her because he thought that she was the one who had ratted him out to the ATF, but being cheated on was what finally broke him. Like, doesn't matter that his bike shop had gotten vandalized. Doesn't matter that the ATF had come and raided him. Didn't matter that he was financially strained. Didn't matter he had lost all his guns. No. What's her face? I don't even remember what her name was. Marion. Old Marion. Marion cheating on him. That was the thing. That was what really caused Terry to snap. And even worse, when he returned home from prison, he found his entire house in shambles. Weeds had actually grown up over the front door, and all of his animals were gone. And he found out that the reason was because Marion had left, and she had taken the animals, and she had continued to care for them. But that's fine. But Terry was distraught at the thought that he would never be able to find enough money to get his animals back. He loves his animals, as weird or as illegally as he obtained them. And even though he couldn't afford to take care of them, he wanted his animals back. And so on October 11th, 2011, Terry, he completely snaps, right? He goes and finds where his animals are. He goes and tracks down Marion, and there's 56 animals on this property. He sets 50 of them free, and then he covers himself in raw chicken so that the more predatory animals would attack and eat him. That didn't happen. So then Terry just shot himself in the head and kills himself. And that's really the start of this story. All of that other stuff, backdrop, because October 11th was really when this story kicks off. So Terry's dead now. He kills himself, but he also has just let 50 exotic animals, a lot of them very dangerous, just out in the wild, and leaving them in whoever in Zanesville would just come across them. And so the first person to have an encounter was a guy named Sam Kopchak, who noticed just this full-grown black bear hanging out with his horses, which is not what you want. That's not the kind of partnership that you want to have with a horse, because bears, they can kill horses. So Sam, he goes back inside to try to grab a gun or to call animal control or whatever. And as soon as he turns around, he is confronted by an equally full-grown lion. That's got to be a nightmare. What kind of day do you have to be having to where you just wake up? Like, that's the last thing you're expecting, right? You wake up, as you've done for however many decades of your life. You go out, you look at your horses, everything's great. Wait, what's that? Is that a bear in my horse pasture? That's not good. Let me turn around real quick and go call some authorities. And then you turn around and there's just a real full lion staring right back at you. I don't know how you mentally recover from that, right? Like, you are voiding all of your bowels at that point, right? You lose all control of your bodily functions, because now, like, your fight or flight mode gotta be through the roof, because you don't expect to just turn around and have a lion stand. Maybe if you're in Africa, sure, but not in Ohio. Lions don't live in Ohio. So Sam freaks out. He runs as fast as he can, probably faster than he's ever run before, to a nearby barn and calls his mom for some reason. Like, this is where I then lose all respect for Sam, because, like, you get to this barn. Who should you call? Police. Yeah. Police is like 911. whoever they can send out at that point, gotta be who you call. Gotta call 911. No, this dude calls his mom. Like, hey, Mom, what? There's a lion in my yard. What do I do? So then the mom calls police. Thank God someone has some common sense here. So Sam, he's waiting for help. And while he's waiting for help, he's found a place where he's like safe away from these animals, the lion and the bear, but he's still able to like see out onto his property and see what's going on. And as he's waiting for someone to come help, he watches a wolf, another bear, another lion, and a tiger all arrive on the scene. And then he watches as they all kind of form an alliance together and start attacking his horses, which gotta be just the most devastating thing to watch. But also at the same time, he's got to be sitting there like, what is my life right now? Like, did a time traveler come back? Did we find out that time travel was real and then he killed a butterfly and now there's just all these wild African animals that live in America now? And I've just woken up in this alternate reality where now my horses that I've spent years raising and taking care of, they're getting mauled. Like, no one in Ohio, again, I can't stress this enough. I can't tell you how, anyone in America, really, no one in America just is ever going to ever wake up and expect to see a lion or a tiger running through the street or in their yard. Bears, maybe, all right? There are places where bears, pretty common. I get that. But lions and tigers? No, not at all. So, while all of this is going on at Sam Kopchak's house, Deputy Jonathan Mary has arrived at Marion Thompson's house and to just kind of try to understand what's going on. He sees a wolf running down the road, which not supposed to be. Like, wolves, not really part of Ohio, right? Wolves, more of a Western thing. So that's odd. Deputy Mary quickly hops back in his car and actually starts following this wolf to another house, at which point he gets out of his car, he shoots it, kills it. Has to. As he went over to make sure that the wolf was dead, he hears a call come over his radio that a lion had been spotted near Marion's house. He is near Marion's house. This dude, all right, like Sam, he's got to be thinking, what's going on? And maybe the deputy at least kind of knew that Terry and Marion were keeping all these exotic animals, so maybe he's a little bit more aware of what's going on. But, you know, just he hears this call that there's a lion out and about near Marion's house. And because he was the only cop on duty at that time with a rifle, Deputy Mary speeds back over to Marion's house, where he is greeted by a black bear running at him at full speed. And a bear running at full speed is horrifying. They can move, all right? I'm a big dude. I feel like I move pretty stealthy for a big dude. It's kind of like that for a bear. No one knows what I'm talking about because maybe a lot of you don't know what I look like or have seen me move. It's never mind. Forget it. Forget that. Anyway, doesn't matter. Armed with only his Glock because his rifle had conveniently gotten stuck in the passenger seat. He's freaking out. Mary does fire a single shot that drops this bear 7 feet away from him. So he survives. Bear is dead. And for the next several hours over this day, Deputy Jonathan Mary just goes on this big buck hunter arcade style killing spree. And he takes out a wolf, another wolf, 2 lions, a tiger, and a grizzly bear. Not just some black bears, but a full grown grizzly bear that Terry had set free before Terry had killed himself. In all, Zanesville police over the next few days killed 48 animals, while the other 2 that Terry had set free presumably were eaten by the others, or they just escaped forever into the Ohio woods somewhere. In addition to the animals that Deputy Mary killed, there were 17 tigers, 17 lions, 6 black bears, another grizzly, another wolf, a macaque, which is like a monkey, a baboon, and 3 mountain lions that were all killed by Zanesville police in this outbreak. And that is how that story ends. All right, an assortment of weirdos in the books. Just fun. Like Terry's story was a lot of fun, right? Because that just, I think that's like a weird nightmare that no one ever thinks about happening, but totally could because of how people just like hang on to exotic animals. So let's recap today and see what we learned.
What did we learn?
Number 1, John Birges owed $750,000 to a casino in Nevada, and rather than pay off that debt, decided that the casino couldn't collect that debt if the casino got blown up. And kind of worked, actually. He blew it up, and then I don't think ever had to end up paying his debt back because he spent the rest of his life in prison. Number 2, Richard Snell, super racist, sucked at being a terrorist, though. Although he did kill 2 people, one that he thought was Jewish and then one that was definitely black. Was a big fan of the Oklahoma City bombing, just a general terrible person. And then number 3, Terry Thompson. Here's the thing, guys. Don't own exotic animals. You don't need them. You don't. It's just, there's so many things that go. What's crazy to me is how this dude acquired like 20 lions and 20 tigers and like multiple grizzly bears and multiple mountain lions. Like those are like real vicious attacking predators. And he's just like all willy-nilly about it. And what's crazy, like, honestly, I wish his initial plan had worked where he covered himself in a raw chicken suit and just had his own animals like maul him to death. That would have been fantastic, but they weren't interested in him for whatever reason. I don't know, maybe because they were finally out of their cages and decided to go explore Ohio, which is not worth it. Like, I don't hate Ohio as much as a lot of people do, but like, it's not special, you know, especially out in Zanesville, which is like East Ohio, kind of like between Columbus and like Wheeling, West Virginia. So like, just, there's nothing out there but pastures and horse farms and all of that. And so nothing, like the animals would have been much better off mauling Terry to death, but didn't happen, and it's fine. The rest of the story makes up for it. Next week on Our Weird World, we are looking at 5 stories of people who got the karma they deserved. They did some things and then they got what they deserved for it, even though they thought they'd gotten away with it. You'll get it. Like, it's not the best preview by any means, but it'll all make sense next week. We're looking at the stories of Ken McElroy, Grace Olive Wiley, Kay Grayson, Peter Rain Bart, and William Burke. So come on back for universal justice. That does it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.